Stephen Hurahan here at BrandMasterAcademy.com, and in this video we're talking about the different approaches that brands use to position their brand effectively and how you can use those approaches in your brand development processes. Now when it comes time to positioning your brand, there are many different approaches available to you, but before you get to that point, you'll have completed some critical work already in understanding who your audience is, what they want, and what they already have available to them in the marketplace in the form of your competitors. And this understanding of your market landscape will give you the critical information that you need to know before deciding on an approach. But understanding the positioning approaches that you have available at your disposal will arm you with the knowledge that you need to make the most effective positioning approach for your brand. So let's take a look at some of those approaches that are available to you that some of the biggest brands in the world use. Now, the first approach is against brand positioning, and this is a classic approach. And essentially what you do is you define what you do differently compared to a major competitor or a major group of competitors. And you go into the marketplace and point the finger at that competitor or that group and say why you do things differently. Now, the major benefit of this is that you're able to, first of all, talk to the pain points that your audience has associated with the competitor's offer. So a lot of the times the audience that you have is not happy with some of the opportunities, some of the offers that they have in the marketplace, and you go into the market and point out that pain point and say why you do things differently. And another major benefit to this is that you're able to leverage the existing awareness that they already have in the marketplace by positioning your brand based on what they do. So it is a classic positioning approach, and Avis made this popular back in 1962 by pointing the finger at Hertz and saying, we're number two, but we do things differently. Dollar Shave Club is another great example of this, pointing the finger at Gillette and saying that you don't need to pay high prices for these over-featured razor blades when you can get them much cheaper over here for the same kind of quality. So that is a really effective positioning strategy. If you're able to point the finger at somebody in your marketplace, preferably a competitor with a lot of brand awareness, then you can leverage their success and their brand awareness. The second approach to brand positioning is hyper specialization. Now, as you probably know, there's a lot of businesses and a lot of brands out there who try to be all things to everybody. They try to fix every problem. They try to say that we do this, we do that, and their messaging is quite diluted because it's hard to know what they do very well. And a lot of consumers look at brands like this and think to themselves, you know, this brand, they don't do anything specialized, and everything that they're going to give me is going to be half-baked. What is it that they do really, really well? But if, on the other hand, you go into the marketplace and you focus in on a very, very specific problem and fixing it in a very unique way, then you can tailor everything around that. You can tailor your messaging around that. And this group of consumers that prefers brands that stay in their lane and focus in on their area of expertise will be more attracted to you than that one-stop shop. So if you're able to hyper specialize and build your communication strategy around that, then that group of consumers will see your brand first. The third approach is leader-based brand positioning, and this is reserved for brands out there who have a huge amount of confidence in what they do, because essentially what you're going to do with this approach is you're going to put your flag in the ground and say, we are the best in our industry at what we do. There is no other brand that can compare to us. And an approach like this does open the door for a lot of competitors or a lot of consumers in the broader market to point the finger and say, well, no, you don't, because of this, this, and this. This is a strategy and an approach that is really reserved for those top tier brands and brands that use top tier pricing strategies as well. And an example of a brand like this would be maybe Rolex or Mercedes. So in both these classes, in the watch class and in the automobile class, you have many, many premium brands, and it's very difficult to go into an industry like that and put a flag in the ground and say we are the best in class. But that's exactly what these brands do. So it is an approach that is reserved for those top tier, but again, it is an approach that you can think of when it comes to your brand and think long term about how your brand will evolve, and maybe it's something that you can aspire to getting your brand to someday. Positioning approach number 4 is price-based positioning. Now, this is the oldest method of positioning out there, and this position was being used long before businesses were ever even considered as brands and businesses were trading in coins. Now, the approach to this positioning strategy is either way. You can go the low price direction, or you can go go the high price direction or anywhere in between. But it is important to understand how it's used. The lower you go in terms of price, the broader your market becomes because more people can afford that price. The higher you go in price, the narrower your audience gets because less people can afford it. And there are obvious advantages and disadvantages to both. At the lower end of the spectrum, more people can afford it, therefore you've got more opportunity for people to come in and buy your product. But it does become a game of margins because anybody can come in and undercut your price, any of your competitors. So it becomes a game of cutting down quality to refine those margins and keep your price lower. If on the other hand you position your price highly, then you anchor your price there, and there's a lot of positive perceptions that comes with that in terms of quality and also in terms of prestige and social status as well. So it is one of the oldest positioning strategies in the book, and if you are going to use this positioning strategy, it's important to know the pros and cons with either end of that approach. The fifth brand positioning approach is the quality-based approach. Now, this is tied directly into the pricing approach, which we just discussed, but the difference here is that with the pricing approach, you can go low in terms of your positioning strategy. You can position your brand as a low price brand, but when it comes to quality, you're never going to position your brand as a low quality brand because there's no benefit in that. Nobody's going to look at a brand and say, yes, I want low quality. So the quality-based approach is based on having that higher end of the quality so you can justify a pricing strategy. Now, the benefit of positioning your brand as a quality brand, just like the high price positioning, is the prestige that comes with that, the perception that your brand is a better brand than the other options out there in the marketplace, and obviously the same associations that come with that, the same social status that come with that. But it is a game of balance here, because to have that quality approach, you need to back that up with quality products or quality services, and if you don't do that, you're going to get found out. At the same time, the higher the quality, the higher your costs are going to be. So again, you need to balance that out and make sure that you are producing and delivering on that quality, but you still have your profit margins there to make that brand positioning strategy work for your brand. Brand positioning approach number 6 is the value-based approach. Now, this takes the price approach and the quality approach and brings the two together to make sure that the brand is providing a high level of value with a balance between the two. Now, whether we buy something that's at a low price or we buy something that's at a high price, we want bang for our buck. We want to feel that we got value for the money that we handed out, and that's what the value-based approach is all about. It takes the price regardless of the price point, whether it's a low price or a high price or a mid-range price, and make sure that the value that's provided for that price is heavily loaded. And it's a really strong position to own in the mind of your audience if you can pull it off, because word of mouth is very, very powerful, and people who find value in the marketplace are happy to tell their friends and to tell their family about the value that they got, because they want to be associated with that value as well. If you tell your friend about some value that you got from a travel agent and they go off and they have a great holiday, well, then they're gonna associate that holiday and the quality that they got from that holiday with your recommendation. They're going to thank you for it. So it's a very, very powerful approach if you can pull it off and you can stake a claim in the mind of your audience for that value that you offer. Then it's very mobile, it's very easy to share that kind of position. Positioning approach number 7 is the benefit-driven approach. Now, this is an old school approach, and it's what brands used to use back in the 50s and the 60s. And it is effective for product positioning, but not so effective for brand positioning. And if you want to evolve your brand over time, well, then you want to evolve past the benefits that it offers today to offer more benefits, and not just benefits either. You want to offer more connections. Consumers and brands have changed their relationships today, and it's more about an emotional connection than it is about our benefits are better than our competitors. So it is an old school positioning approach, but it can still be used today on a product level, and some brands still use it as well. If you think about Dyson, their bagless vacuum that doesn't lose suction. They built their brand off of that benefit. So it is an old school benefit approach, but it is still one that's available to you. But you should understand what you want to do with your brand and the connections that you want to make with your audience. Approach number 8 is disruptive brand positioning. Now, this has become more prevalent in the last 10 to 20 years because technology has changed so many things, and technology coming into various industries has disrupted so many different industries. Pretty much every industry today has been disrupted now at this stage by recent technologies. And the reason that they call it disruptive is because when things change, when the industry is disrupted, there's a lot of people and existing players in the market that are disrupted by the new approach. If you think about taxi drivers and how they were disrupted by Uber drivers, there was a lot of fallout from that, but it is becoming more and more prevalent today because of technology. And if you think about your industry, there's a lot of industry norms, there's a lot of best practices and the way things are just done today. So if you can go into that market and take a different approach and say, well, we're not going to do things the way everybody else does things, we're going to do things in this way, you can go in and disrupt your industry. And there's a lot of advantages to this. If you are the first mover on that, then you have first mover advantage, and you can go in and essentially create a new category by doing things even slightly differently to the industry already, to the way they're already doing things at the moment. So there are a lot of advantages to this. It is very difficult to pull off because it does need really high level conceptual thinking and then first class execution if you're going to go through with it. But if you are able to pull off a disruptive brand positioning approach, then the benefits there are absolutely huge. Positioning approach number 9 is convenience-based positioning. Now, this is another positioning approach that's becoming more relevant over the last 10 to 20 years or so because of how our expectations as consumers has changed, how our attention span has changed. We don't have time for anything. We don't have time to take these extra steps that we might have done 10 or 20 years ago. And if someone from 10, 20 or 30 years ago were to look at the privileges that we have today and look at how we still complain that everything is too hard, well then, they wouldn't be able to understand it because our perceptions and our expectations of how we want to do things has changed. But if you think about your industry and what your competitors are doing and how many steps your competitors take to get your audience a result, and you're able to take away one of those steps to make things easier for your customers, easier for your shared audience, well then they're going to turn their attention towards you because that's what we want today. We don't want to think unnecessarily. We don't want to take extra time to do things because we've become so used to doing things efficiently and easily. So if your industry is an industry where you can go in and make things easier for your audience, well then you're going to claim a position in their mind as a brand that makes things easier. So becoming more and more effective and more relevant in today's low attention span market. Now, as you can see, as brand builders, there are plenty of different positioning approaches available to you, but there are some non-negotiables before you ever get to this point. You need to understand who your audience is on an intimate level, what they like, what they dislike, their pain points, their challenges, what the competitors are doing in the marketplace and what they're offering your shared audience, and how your audience feels about those offers as well. It's only with that understanding and that high level understanding of your market landscape can you then decide on the best approach for your brand positioning. So I'd love to know if you've got any comments or any questions at all in relation to brand positioning approaches. Let me know below. I'll do my best to answer all of those questions. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and until then, happy brand building, and I will see you in the next video.